And welcome back to another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. Got a little bit of a switch up today. RJ is feeling a little under the weather, and as soon as I heard that news, like I knew the exact man I had to call. He's been on the show before. You've read it. You've read his stuff over at Georgia Tech on SI. Najeh, welcome back to the show. Unfortunate circumstances, but happy to have you break down the game with me here after the loss to Syracuse.
Yes, sir, man. I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about the Yellow Jackets and get into the game, man. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So, we always start off the show with this, and I know it's a little tough this week. So it's hard to listen to a podcast when your team loses. I totally get it. I've done podcasts after even worse losses than this, so like I've been there. But if you are tuning in, really appreciate you for sticking in. Would love it if you could subscribe if you're not already. Give the video a like. If you're following on podcast forum, just give us a like over there, follow us, and do all that stuff. So yeah, let's get into that a little bit because there's a lot to discuss even for an instant reaction pod. So yeah, Georgia Tech went on the road today, lost to Syracuse 31-28, and I think you have to start with the defense, even though there's I think offensive concerns as well. Like there was a lot that surprised me about the offense in this game, but I think you know coming into the week, me and RJ talked about it earlier in the week, when we kind of gave our early preview and then when we had Emily on Wednesday to preview the game, we were anxious to see what Georgia Tech did against a good passing attack because, again, no disrespect to Florida State or Georgia State, like their passing attacks are just very subpar. Like they're just not up to they're not going to be the best that Georgia Tech's seen by far. So I was interested to see how they did. Kyle McCord had a very good game one. They have a lot of weapons like Arondé Gadsden, the tight end, Trevor Pena, the wide receiver. So I was interested to see how they matched up. And I don't know if there's a grade worse than F- that I could give, but they would deserve it today. It was horrible. My concern was the pass rush and being unable to stop McCord, and it was a nightmare for them all game long. And honestly, if Syracuse hadn't shot themselves in the foot several times, it would have been worse, because the only unit I can even say that played well for Georgia Tech today was the special teams. They got a Zeke Biggers blocked the field goal. He had the block, or somebody had the block punt. I'd had to go back to see who it was. And then, of course, the onside kick at the end. But the defense, I mean, just like I'll read the numbers right now. 515 total yards for Syracuse. Kyle McCord, 32 of 46 for 381 and 4 touchdowns. 28 first downs compared to 19 for Georgia Tech. Averaged 6.6 yards per play and 11.9 yards a completion. It's not good. Najeh, what did you see from the defense and kind of what are your key takeaways from that and I guess moving forward?
Yeah, man, it was really just a mismatch. I mean, when you break the game down and you see what they were running, they were killing their cover two, right? They were using their slot receivers and putting them over the middle of the field, creating mismatches against Traylon Tatum and also Kyle Eford. So, and then they did a lot of crossing patterns in that game where it was causing confusion between the DBs and the linebackers. So you got to communicate when you see that. When you see a guy kind of coming over and he's cutting you off, the other one has to come around. The corner has to come around, make sure he has that. So that was kind of causing some of the early confusion on. You've seen an adjustment in the second half by Tyler Santucci, bringing more pressure. Because like you said, to your point, they weren't getting home. They only got 1 sack in this game. That's 2 sacks through 3 games. That's not going to cut it. Like if you're going to beat a team like this, you got to force Kyle McCord into some turnovers, some uncomfortable throws. He did have a couple missed throws in it, but overall, man, he felt pretty good throwing in and they was able to really do whatever they wanted. So, and I think one thing I wanted to point out to on a telecast they talked about, and Coach Key talked about this, said we were playing too off. We have to have tighter coverage. So early in the game, they were taking advantage. They were running in-breaking routes, slants, and that's because they're putting 7-8 yards off of the receivers. So when you have that, they can take advantage of that, And I think what the adjustment is, maybe instead of cover 2, you might have to go maybe cover 3, some quarters, and you might have to throw in a couple of different exotic blitzes in there to make them feel uncomfortable. But that's why the first half they picked them apart.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, they've got it. They're going to have to figure something out with the front four. I'll say the run defense is a little bit better this year, but right now, if they cannot figure out the pass rushing situation, like this is not the last good passing attack you're going to face this year. And like you said, like they couldn't disrupt the timing at all. And really outside of like some even the incompletions were more of McCord's fault. You go back to that very last drive after Georgia Tech cuts it to 3. He threw that screen pass and it was almost an errant throw that Kyle Eford picked off. And I guess we maybe should get into that a little bit. This game was not close for a little bit of the. I won't even say a little bit, for like the majority. It felt like Georgia Tech got dominated.
Yeah.
I will give credit where it's due. They scrapped their way back in it. After going down 31-14, they had the. And also shout out to Fidel Diggs, their defensive lineman at Syracuse. He absolutely dominated up front today. He got the fourth down stop. Syracuse scores a touchdown, goes up 31-14. Tech's offense finally wakes up a little bit, goes down and scores. Chase Lane catches a touchdown in the back of the end zone. It's 31-21. They get the onside kick. I believe it hit a Syracuse player because when it first happened, I couldn't tell what was going on, but I was like, man, that did not go 10 yards. So I'm like, that's going to get called back. But it ended up hitting a Syracuse player. They score fairly quickly, not quite as quick as you would like. Jamal Haynes runs it in. They decided to kick it deep, which I do think was the right decision right there. You can always second guess when things go wrong, but I do think they should have kicked it deep instead of trying another onside, just because you had 3 timeouts. You had the 2-minute timeout as well. I thought Kyle Eford made like the game-changing play there. I thought he picked that screen pass off. It did not happen. I want to ask you, so on second down, Syracuse drops the ball. It's going to be 3rd and long, but they had a penalty called on him for, I think, an illegal chop block that could have moved him back 10 yards. Key decided to decline it, make it a 3rd and long. They had one play, and then Aronde Gadsden made the play, got the first down. Did you like the decision to decline the penalty, or would you have accepted it putting them in 2nd long?
That's such a good question. I think I would have probably put them in 2nd and long, because then it makes it at least a little bit tougher. You're looking at 2nd and 20, maybe instead of 3rd and 10. And that way you can kind of play your DBs off a little bit and just say, hey, let's come up and tackle. In that situation, you still have your 3 timeouts. But I think Key was like, let's get it to 3rd and 10. Let's get that stop, get off the field. But they struggled so much. I think if I'm Key, if I'm going to go with that 3rd and 10, I'm going to roll more coverage over to Gaston and let somebody else beat me. Now, Payne did have a good game in that one, but I might double him on that one. And, hey, let me get beat by somebody else, not him. But yeah, I would have went with the 2nd down if it was me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, again, hindsight's 20/20. It's always easy to second guess things when they go wrong. But I was kind of thinking that in the time too, because I thought you might just force Syracuse instead of trying to throw the ball and get the first down. I thought they might just try to get Tech to use 2 timeouts, run the ball real quick, and then punt it back. But again, hindsight's 20/20, so we'll never know. But they still had a chance to stop them after that. They stopped the first down run, but then, I mean, the backbreaker was just poor tackling on that 2nd down. Syracuse picks up the first down, effectively ends the game. There was just way too many flashbacks to last year's defense today, and like those questions are going to persist, especially, given the way Florida State looks right now on that side of the ball. So, but I guess, I can pile on the defense for the rest of the podcast, but I think we need to talk a little bit about the other side of the ball, because I had concerns about Tech's ability to stop them consistently through the air, because I hadn't thought they'd faced a true passing attack yet. I was shocked to see them, one, not be able to run the ball. The main reason I picked Georgia Tech to win this game, and I thought this game would be close, but the main reason I picked Tech to win this game was watching Ohio run for 255 yards against Syracuse and 6.5 yards a carry. Syracuse's best linebackers out with an injury. Georgia Tech's offensive line is one of the better ones in the ACC. And, I mean, that they just got punched in the mouth today. I don't know another way to put it. I mean, outside of Haynes King running the ball on some design runs, I mean, Jamal Haynes didn't have a great day on the ground. 11 carries, 35 yards, 3.2 average. Anthony Carey, 5 carries for 5 yards. You didn't see much, Eric Singleton carried the ball one time. You didn't really see a lot of touches go to him or Malik Rutherford, but yeah, it was just a tough day. And then, I mean, especially after the first drive, Syracuse drives it down the field easily, goes up 7-0. I mean, Tech bounced back pretty quickly, and Haynes King had that big touchdown run to start the game. But anytime that they had a chance to get back in the game, they failed to do so. And, so, for instance, at the end of the first half, it's 21-14. Tech does come up with a stop on defense miraculously. And I thought they mismanaged the end of the first half. I'll get your thoughts on it. Too much time was running off the clock. It felt like a lack of urgency. I'm not going to put that on them and say they didn't have any urgency, but it certainly appeared that they had a lack of urgency, and then they settle for the field goal. They get the 4th down conversion with Eric Singleton, settle for the field goal, and Aiden Burr misses it.
Yep.
Because I was thinking that whole time there towards the end, it's 21-14. You get the ball back. Like, you were at the press conference last week. Like, Key talked about that middle 8 in the game and how well they executed it against Georgia State, scoring at the end of the first half and then starting strong in the second half. Well, Burr misses the field goal, and then you go 3 and out to start the second half, and it is just you took too late to get going.
100% agree. I mean, to your point, that was one of my takeaways because your special teams was special today. Like, we talked about the block punt, the block field goal, and obviously the onside kick. But you get a blocked punt, you're at the 40-yard line, and you don't get any points. Like, obviously you drove down, get a 4-for-4 conversion by Eric Singleton Jr., but it's like that one you have to be aggressive. So I would say maybe lack of aggressiveness. Like, if I know I'm getting the ball, I want to hit Syracuse twice. I want to go up 28-21 so that my defense feels good. Now, credit, the defense didn't play great today, but they did a good job after they went 3 and out, and they only held them to a field goal after being on the field for 15 plays and 65 yards. So that's a credit to them on that as well, because they could have caved in and let them score, but they didn't. But, yeah, the offense took way too long to get going. Only 14 points, 35 yards rushing for Jamal Haynes, as you alluded to. This is a team that wants to run the ball. Now, the stat shows 111 yards, but they didn't get going until late in the game. Now, if they could have had that onslaught that they had earlier in the game, that 14 points in the fourth quarter, they probably have a better chance to win. So I thought the offense didn't play up to the standard that usually what they are. And that mismanagement, as you alluded to, Jackson, was key because you could have doubled up on that instead of going over for both. So that was key. And then I want to bring this up too. I don't know if you feel this way about Haynes King, but man, I was watching that fourth quarter, a game they shouldn't have been in, especially after that Gaston's touchdown. I mean, when you have Haynes King as your quarterback, you feel pretty good about your ability to win every game. And that was one of my other big takeaways is Haynes King can ball. I mean, he was efficient on the night. Was it his best game? No, but he was the best runner. He made the throws. A couple of them were a little errant, but, because of pressure. But I feel like, man, he's one of the best players in the country. And if you're a Georgia Tech fan, you should be excited about that coming out of this game because you had a chance to win this game when you shouldn't really have won after Syracuse pretty much dominated. So that's one of my key takeaways as well. King he looks good. He looks efficient, and he looks like one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, a big picture takeaways. He's, turnovers have been down. He's been very accurate with the ball, making good decisions. I don't know. I just felt the offense at times just lacked direction, especially in that middle section of the game. After they scored that first touchdown, basically up till like midway through the fourth quarter, it was tough to get anything going. And, a lot of the stuff was check downs and like, again, credit to King for not putting the ball in harm's way and forcing things. But yeah, it was, to me, I was just very surprised. I was very surprised to see them struggle to run the ball. I thought they would go for over 200 yards. I know you did too. You wrote up in our staff predictions, but it was they did not do that. And like Syracuse looked like the more physical team today. Typically when you watch Georgia Tech teams, even when they lose sometimes, like you come away thinking that's a very physical football team. They didn't look it today. Now, I think that, you got some of the worst versions of themselves today, especially up front. But there's a lot to figure out in the coming days. I guess let's look forward just a little bit now. Obviously, a little bit of the air is out of the balloon with Tech right now. Like they're almost certainly not going to be ranked tomorrow when the new AP poll comes out, and you have VMI next week to try to figure some stuff out. But there's a lot of challenging things, a lot of challenging games ahead, and there's just so much that has to get fixed. Like if this version of the defense can't show up, and that's what scares me. Like right now is I don't know how they fix it, because I think some of it is personnel a little bit. Like my biggest concern coming into the year was the pass rush, and look, they did get one sack today. But when was Kyle McCord ever truly bothered outside of maybe one or two plays? Like I know Tay Seymour came on a blitz off the edge one time. There was a couple other times when and he had to dial up blitzes because like the front four can't get home. Like it became to the point where you had to send blitzes, and it was just very jarring and very disappointing to see after what looked like some growth through the first 2 weeks, and now it's kind of come back down to earth a little bit. But
do Do you think, Jackson, they might have to play maybe a couple of the younger guys at those front end positions on the defensive line, maybe just to change things up, so that maybe we can see a different kind of look, and maybe they can get home as well?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see if Jordan Boyd or Amontre Bradford, two guys I know you're familiar with, can get some snaps going forward. I'm not at all saying they're going to just fix the problem. Like, play the freshman, your problem's fixed. I would be interested to see if they get snaps, though. Like, that is something, that's a good point that you bring up. But yeah, look, you get VMI, that should be a win. Look, I know I should never project wins, but I think you can project the win right there. You're gonna go diving in the deep end against Louisville the next time, because I think they have an even better offense than Syracuse. So we'll find out in just a couple of short weeks just how much this team can improve. It was ugly today. Again, I will give them credit for fighting back. They did not quit. I do think that deserves to be praised, but offensively, they waited way too long to get things going there towards the end. Defense was bad all day. Defense was so bad.
One last point. Sorry to cut you off. No big plays. Think about the first 2 weeks. A lot of big plays. We didn't see that today.
No, I mean, the biggest play I can think of was Was it even Singleton? I think Singleton may have caught a 20-something yard pass in the first half, because he finished with 3 catches for 71 yards in the first half. And I think he had a big one there on the second touchdown drive for Georgia Tech, because they went 4 plays, 75 yards on that second drive. But yeah, you're right. Other than that, there was no big runs outside of the Haynes King touchdown runs. Like, Jamal Haynes couldn't break one loose for a long gain. You didn't see any, Malik Rutherford down the field. It was – they give up too many chunk plays through the air, up the seam, over the middle, and they just didn't create enough. And, Syracuse dominated time of possession a lot. That's something else that probably should be pointed out. They were wanting to play keep away with Georgia Tech. I mean, Syracuse possessed the ball for 36 minutes, 52 seconds, compared to 23 minutes and 8 seconds for Georgia Tech. And last week, we were both at the game last week. Georgia State failed to convert a lot of red zone and goal line opportunities. Today, Syracuse 5 for 5. They scored every time they got in the red zone, and tip your cap to them. But just a dreadful game. I know it was only 3 points, and maybe I'm being a little over the top, but I come away feeling worse about this team than I did coming in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Anything else you want to add there?
Good point. I think they'll have to adjust, especially with their coverages. I mean, defenses, if you're gonna play cover 2, they're gonna come across the middle and take advantage of your linebackers. So I think it comes down to how they adjust. Some of it, as you alluded to, Jackson, is personnel. But what I do like about Santucci is he does adjust. They gave up 21 points in the first half. They only gave up 10 in the second. So this was an ugly game, but they did keep them in it for as long as they could, I thought, for the most part. And as you said, they finished pretty strong. So there are some key takeaways you can take away from this game, but they're going to have to find something for the pressure. You can't just have elite quarterbacks, especially you're going to play Kyron Jones. You're going to play Cam Ward. You're going to play Carson Beck. So you're going to play elite quarterbacks. You're going to have to find a way to create pressure and get them off their spots. So that's the key for the defense. And secondary has to be better as well. You might have to switch that up. And then offensively, just got to continue to see the big plays. I thought creativity-wise, probably not their best game. I felt like you said a lot of check downs to Singleton, Rutherford. Man, they was killing people first 2 games all over the middle of the field. Deep throws. You got to let King air it out. One thing I do want to say, physically, did they get overpowered? Yes, but they did a good job protecting Haynes King for the most part in this game. They had to dial up some pressures as well. So he did have a lot of time to kind of dissect the defense and be able to throw. So credit to the offensive line for that. But in the trenches, as far as running, they weren't too good. But those are my key takeaways.
Yep. I always love a glass half full approach, and I know I can count on you for that. But that's going to do it for this show today. I don't know if RJ will be back Monday. I don't want to promise the people their guy and him not show up. So we'll have a show on Monday. With it might be us too. RJ could be back, but we'll have a show on Monday, kind of digging deeper into the loss. But just ugly all around. Tech's 2-1 now. Got VMI at home next week. So if you did make it to the end of this episode, I Really appreciate it. Again, subscribe on YouTube, like the video, follow us on podcast form. Be sure to follow Najeh. He does just a lot of great work for us. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.